Robyn is on Sister Wives Tell-All, and come on, every single one of them is lying through their booties about what really went down this season and in their relationships. We know that it's not what they're saying, right? And then there's Kody and his cameo. I don't know if you know this, but he gets paid to chat with people and give advice. But here's the thing. Most of Kody's advice is actually just him explaining his own life. He's supposed to be providing people with sincere messages for birthdays, honeymoons, congratulations, whatevers. And instead, he turns every single cameo into a complaining session about himself. Last week, for instance, he was asked to congratulate a newlywed couple off on their honeymoon and maybe offer some wedding advice. And goodness gracious, Kody being Kody, he just couldn't help but make it cringeworthy. On the show, they went years without talking about sex. Intimacy was off limits. They didn't want to know what was happening in each other's bedrooms because it made everyone uncomfortable. But I've always said this. If people are truly okay with being in a plural relationship, if they really consent, then theoretically, they shouldn't feel jealous, right? Because they've accepted the arrangement. But if you're jealous, that's usually your body waving a big red flag and yelling in your ear something's wrong. And the reality, jealousy is a totally normal human emotion. A lot of folks like to pretend that polygamy in these faith-based systems, in these cults, is this kind of consenting thing. But I don't think it is. You'll never convince me. It's coercion, control, fear, a whole system designed to reduce women to cattle and property. And that's exactly what Kody did confess to in the tell-all, when he basically confessed that he didn't respect some of his wives. But let me take you back, because several years ago, I told you this story. One of Kody's friends told them that they were having lunch with him, and Kody just went on and on talking about how amazing the sex was with Robyn. He couldn't get enough. He was obsessed, like an addict with a substance use disorder waiting for his next fix. He was a fiend. And most recently, in a cameo video for some Nobody Sister Wives fan, Kody actually bragged, yes, bragged about his honeymoon with Robyn. And believe me, it was so tacky, so disgusting. He informed them that they didn't have any money, that they spent half of it, and that they only had a $500 credit card and a little lodging credit to get by. I mean, what is this guy even? IETELC paid for them to stay in a hotel, and they had a per diem card that they were given for eating on a daily basis by TLC. And so he didn't pay at all for his honeymoon. It was filmed. They went out for dinner. They went to parks more than just Disney World. But then he said that they had to get away, and they lost each other and each themselves. And you know, that's just a chunk of it, of him talking about the giving and the receiving and getting to know each other's beautiful experiences. And you know, it was their first dip in their toes of having intimacy. I don't believe that, by the way. You'll never make me believe that the honeymoon was the first time they ever did it. And can you imagine getting a cameo from Kody Brown? And he is giving you innuendo about the amazing sex that Robyn and he had on their San Diego honeymoon in California, where they were gone for 11 days. And now we know why it was 11 days, because apparently for a couple of the days they filmed, and the other 9 all they did was stay in their hotel room and front-hugged Mormon fundamentalist style on the bed. I wonder if they wore their garments. Sometimes they do that. But giving and receiving and exploring. And yes, Kody and Robyn, all they did on their honeymoon, apparently outside of those few times they filmed, was have sex. You know, I always said that Kody was such a pervert, and I always knew he was, because I think about this a lot now that I'm covering this case with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. If I didn't cover these stories, I would literally never speak about these kinds of topics, because why would you speak about these kind of topics? I don't care about Kody's sex life. It's just gross. Why would I think about him in a bedroom with Robyn? I mean, do you think once they got rich, they just started laying out $100 bills on the bed and rolling around and exploring and giving and receiving? Kody was asked to give a cameo about a honeymoon. And Kody's idea of a honeymoon is sex. That's what he thinks of his honeymoon. I'm just going to have as much sex as possible. I'm going to lie in a bedroom all day long. But more importantly, it's like he wants these people to know that he and Robyn had a lot of sex. Why do you need to share that with some rando that's having their honeymoon? Do you think they really want to go into their honeymoon now thinking about Kody and Robyn having sex? And if you're Robyn, how do you feel about your husband telling everyone that all you did on your honeymoon was have sex? It's kind of like when he was talking about the divorce with Mary, and he was making a comment about how they probably went home and made love after she signed the divorce documents. And on the tell-all, Mary just said that they never spoke about that publicly because it was an agreement that they didn't want it to be like that. Because obviously there's already that stigma about polygamous men being creepy. And then so he makes that comment. It's like the very first time really he speaks about it in a way like that on the show. And then now that he has opened that door, apparently it's all Kody wants to talk about. I mean, he's so gross. Somebody paid $150 for him to talk about how much sex he had with Robyn on their honeymoon. So once Kody was done talking about starving his wife, Robyn, his mistress Robyn, threw all of their front hugging, Mormon style on the bed. He then was doing Mother's Day cameos, and in two of them, he made this comment, which I thought was interesting, and it reminded me of something he said in the all where he said that every single person gives you something different, and they fulfill a need in you, or they give you something, or they add something to you, and you have different relationships with everybody, which is true. But at the same time, I think Kody views relationships very transactionally, like what they give to him, not necessarily like the back and forth that exists between the two of them. And he used to say that he didn't need one wife to fulfill a need in him. He used to always say that they all were a whole person, and the relationships were whole, all of them. And they didn't fulfill a need in one, and then another one, and another one. It wasn't like they were compartmentalized as like Robyn was the sex wife, and this one was the cooking wife, and this one was the working wife, or whatever. This is the head wife. He always said that they were all whole. So now we know that Robyn was a sex life. But then also he has a very sexist view about women, right? He said that Christine made him a meal, and he couldn't be happy because she was always complaining about how she was unhappy. And then in these cameos, he's talking about mothers, and he has this idea, this concept, that the reason why women have unconditional love for their kids is because when they have the baby or they give birth, which this would only be for a woman that gives birth. By the way, there's plenty of mothers that adopt children that can love their kids unconditionally. And there are also plenty of women that have children that don't love their children unconditionally. But he says that when you have your child, your body releases oxytocin and it makes you bond with your child. And I'm sure there's some truth to this, but he equates the release of the oxytocin to a mom being able to love a child and be empathetic and be understanding and be patient and love them unconditionally to childbirth and in the release of oxytocin. And then he says he's jealous of mothers because they can love unconditionally. And then he explains away his bad parenting because he says that he has to be the guy that is the bad cop. You know, that he's putting them in their place. He's firm with them. He's always having to run defense. You know, he's the one that has to put them in line, which is, again, a very sexist view on parenting, that it's this old concept that men are detached from their kids and that their children are bonded unconditionally with their mothers, which true, it's true. Like women do have relationships with their children that are likely very different than men. But to say that men cannot love their children unconditionally, I think that is so unfair to men. And if this is how he views his children, no wonder half of them want nothing to do with them. With him, if his view of parenting is that he just shows up to correct them or to discipline them, you know what I mean? Or to scold them, what kind of parent is that you're missing out on all the good stuff, right? And he acts like the wives that are not being the ones to hold them accountable. And I'll tell you a secret, my husband is the softy of me and him when it comes to my son, and I'm a huge softy with my son. But if we're trying to get my kid to do something, our kid to do something, my son knows how to push daddy's buttons to like not get daddy to make him do it. You know what I mean? Like if it's like, you got to do your homework, he can whittle his way with daddy and he can get his way out of it. But when it comes to me, like we hold firm. He knows to listen to mommy. He's going to get his homework done. And I'm not a mean mom by any means. We don't spank. He doesn't get timeouts. He doesn't get grounded. You know what I mean? Like dads can be softies and love unconditionally and sacrifice and literally love their child more than they love themselves. That's possible. But the way that Kody views kids and women is so weird to me. If he is this detached and he thinks that only women are capable of loving unconditionally, what does that say for men? Does that mean that his sons then are going to go on to be fathers that don't know how to love unconditionally? Does this mean that he doesn't love Aurora and Brianna and Dayton and Solomon and Ariella unconditionally? Does it mean that if they do something that upsets him, he will then unlove them? Is that how it is, that what it means? Because a child's place in the world, their one way to form good relationships in life is by having parents that model behavior to them, that's safe, and that you don't leave them scarred and wounded. And a lot of us grew up with parents that left us scarred and wounded. And it would appear that Kody continues this with his current children that he's living with, because he didn't say that he can love his current kids, like the little ones, unconditionally. What an empty vessel of just gross nothingness. It must be utterly exhausting to be around this man. And Robyn must really like the money so much so that she's okay with her husband speaking about starving her on her honeymoon because of all the sex they had, and then making comments about how women can love unconditionally, but he can't. So newsflash for Robyn, once you wear out your welcome and you don't give him what he wants and you don't bend to his needs and you stop giving him all the sex, you're going to become as uninteresting to him as all the other women. And once your children start having opinions that he can't control, they will get discarded just like the others. And there is a reason why their oldest son, Dayton, is not on the show. And it's because Kody and him do not get along. But they won't tell you that Kody mistreats a child and a young adult with autism. Poorly, they'll never tell you that he's just a creep. And these cameos are the real Kody, not the one that you see on TV. So what are your thoughts about these creepy comments that Kody made about his wife, Robyn, about children, about sex? Is he as gross as I think he is? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, guys.